And George, you may take it away.
Well, my name's George Shilge, and I want to thank Lauren for helping us out here with HubSpot. And my role in this is really kind of founder and CEO of Matrix Marketing Group. Have been a college professor in the past as an adjunct for several universities, both in Colorado and New York, and worked for several companies, IBM, Bond, Sun Microsystems, and kind of what I do in the fun and hoping it'll snow soon is a professional ski instructor. Now Lauren, as I mentioned earlier, is with HubSpot, and she really is the lead nurturing marketing manager down at HubSpot in Boston. And she started out in gaming and animation book publishing. She moved to the tech startups back in 2012, started a HubSpot fairly recently in 2014, and has been doing lead nurturing for the North America region ever since. So I want to thank Lauren for that, and I'm going to kick it off. And really what we're going to talk about today in the agenda is really the current state of practice. The connected buyer's experience. I'm going to walk you through the 7 stages. We're going to talk about engaging the buyer through the journey, and then some strategies for the marketers, and then really listen to Lauren about the HubSpot story. But to start it off, there's a $1.3 trillion is composed of dissatisfied customers, and they're continually looking for new providers that can address their needs. And that number is $5.9 trillion globally. So only 7% of the marketers surveyed responded, strongly agreed when they were asked if they have a unified view of the customer. And this was only a year ago. So I guess my question is, what's your answer to this question? Now, I'll be exploring really the marketer's role in the first 4 stages of the buyer's journey in this session. However, there are 7 stages in this whole journey. Now, of all the customer-facing teams within a business, it's really the marketers that are most active through the entire course of the buyer's journey. Now, marketers create the brand with existing customers and generate curiosity among prospective buyers. They ensure that the stories about the company and its products and services remain clear and compelling throughout the customer journey. So as I mentioned earlier, I'll be covering the first 4 stages of the 7. Now, today's buyers have access to so much data, and they tend to self-diagnose their needs. About 60% of the buying cycle is completed before the buyer even engages with suppliers. And it's the leading marketers that engage early and focus on challenging key assumptions underlying buyers' points of view and selection criteria, all done to push more deals in their favor. So many marketers today push out content that's really me too, it's too vanilla, and the content's not aligned to where the customer is in the buying cycle, or it's not delivered on the right medium. So for example, mobile, tablet, and TV. Now here we see the marketing and business report card. And the company might be getting lots of leads, email open rates, and subscribers, but these efforts are simply not converting into top-line growth. So think about this for a minute. Are you getting lots of leads at the top of your sales funnel or none at all? And really, what percentage converts to sales qualified leads? And do you identify bottlenecks that might be slowing down your sales? So this is kind of some of the questions that I'm going to go through and answer for you today. Now, in a typical company, we often see marketing efforts that's dispersed, and the content really lacks coherency and interconnectedness. And it's really the marketing's role to get this in control and guide the effort in an orchestrated fashion. So they really need to be the conductors of all the activity in these circles. Now, here we see siloed digital tactical activities happening, and they're not really collectively happening in a coordinated fashion that really impact sales. So despite companies' best efforts over the past decade, customer data remains fragmented. It's housed in silos across multiple functions and databases. Now, with data this dispersed, companies cannot create a strong customer relationship. And companies, they must break down the silos here. So doing so typically requires not only new technologies like a marketing backbone, and I'll use HubSpot as an example, to make the data accessible to those who need it and when they need it. So it also requires a new policy and procedure to support the blurring really of the artificial boundaries among sales, marketing, and service, and other customer functions. So I want you to think, you're probably thinking through this and going, is any of this really even possible? So leading marketers seek to teach customers and reset their criteria with a focus of interconnected path of content and marketing efforts. And they're doing so before the customer really even starts to self-diagnose their needs. So what you really should be looking at is really teach the buyer something new about their business needs and use infographics and blogs. Provide your buyer with a compelling reason why it's necessary to take action and create a trigger for them. Give the buyer an expert perspective and create content that's easy to understand and quick to find. So in the awareness phase is really the first phase that we're going to be talking about. And in the buyer's journey, it really doesn't begin when a person enters a store or visits a website. It starts when they have a need. And at the awareness phase, customers tend to be passive. Typically, they're not aware of their needs. They may have read or seen a commercial, and we'll call these triggers. And it's these triggers that may or may not be within your control. And in this stage, buyers are passive, but you can't. You and your company always have to be active and on your game. So if you're not standing, if not, you're not standing a good chance, and you may be missing some good opportunities. You've got to be where your potential customers are, and your goal is really to influence and help define the need and create a trigger to become the benchmark against other alternatives. So some of the techniques that I would recommend that you employ, marketers must provide multiple entry points at the start of the customer journey. From there, it's just a matter of meeting customer needs, and regardless of what path they take. So advertise in relevant media. You may go to the industry trade rags or use a pay-per-click campaign. And peer and search queries. So make sure your ideal customer profile is set. You have a keyword strategy, and you're using on-page and off-page SEO strategies. And you should be participating in conversations that are relevant on social media. And you may be active on LinkedIn, Twitter, Google+, Pinterest, and there's multiple other ones. And really, deliver relevant outbound campaigns. And I would recommend doing emails, and there's other vehicles to use. So here, leading marketers, seek to teach the customer and reset their buying criteria with a focus of an interconnected path of content and marketing activities. So you should be executing multiple touch-point campaigns and then measure interest and response. And you want to analyze your customer conversations and your customer profiles to understand the audience preferences and deliver relevant and engaging digital and physical experience to your existing audience. And finally, optimize content for digital consumption and make sure that it's on the right medium. Again, that's the mobile, the tablets, and the TV. So now we move into the discovery phase, and this is really the second stage. And once the buyer's aware that they may have a need, they switch into a mode of actively gathering information to evaluate that need. We've really entered into the discovery phase at this point, and they begin to determine whether the need is real or perceived. Whether it's worth pursuing given their financial situation and ability to invest the time in making a selection. So buyers are evaluating options. They're researching, they're really focusing on their need, and they're looking at specific businesses and potentially products and services. And they're doing it quickly through web searches and casual conversations with their peers. So your goal is to establish your business as a reliable source of information and offer a potential solution. So since customers really only are exploring at this point, your solution doesn't have to be detailed. Your objective is really to deliver relevant information that need and help them really assess their need. And it's this early impression that gives you the opportunity to pull your business, into the buyer's radar. So some things to consider, your goal at the discovery stage is to have your company show up in organic search engines and position your business as a trusted source of information. You want to appear in search results for queries, specifically topic related, and what problems they may be searching for and some of the solutions. You've got to participate in conversations that are relevant on the social media platforms and deliver relevant content as well as thought leadership pieces. And finally, engage curious buyers via their preferred channels. So now we're moving into the interest stage, and this is the third stage of the customer's journey. And during the interest phase, buyers cast a broad net and gather all sorts of options and quickly evaluate one and determine if any of them can be dismissed. So here their goal is really to consider all the possible solutions and narrow them down to a short list. So customers enter this phase really actively seeking to build a comprehensive list of viable solutions. They return to their preferred search channels and they collect information about each solution to decide, whether to keep it on their list. Now the research tends to be a little more focused at this stage as well. They're gathering information like price. They're adding new factors that they may not have thought about before. So customers are now beginning to investigate your offerings, which is why this phase is so critical in really differentiating your value proposition in your company. So here's some activities to consider. Offer third-party opinions, both professional and personal. Run campaigns designed to quickly inform buyers and position key differentiators for your business and products and services. Provide a rich and engaging experience at every touch point and address initial inquiries about features and functions, features and benefits, and while introducing some of your strengths that may differentiate you further. And just be sure that you're getting your value proposition in early and often. So we're moving now into the consideration phase, and this is really the fourth stage of the buying cycle and the final one that I'll be discussing. But during the consideration phase, the buyer is ready to make a decision. This phase can vary in length, and it depends on really the list of alternatives, the number of key criteria that they've set out in their purchase decision, the amount of decision makers, the dollar amount, and the impact of the business. Buyers are seeking information to determine what's the best option for them. This means comparing, the pros and cons, price, features, support, and reviews that they're reading about. So this is really the most critical step and where the competition may be at its peak. So deliver information on the channels that the buyers are looking at. This is vital. And you must be proactive. Use insights to answer the questions before they ask them. And then demonstrate your expertise and build the trust and prompt the customer to take action. So in the consideration phase, you should be employing some of these tactics. Offer third-party opinions to support your claims, identify influencers in the decision-making process, and engage them along with the decision maker. Anticipate and eliminate objections and hurdles to take action. Ensure that your service availability and delivery schedules are clearly communicated. Now this slide is from Forrester Research, and I find this very interesting, and it kind of sums up everything that we've discussed so far. And really on the outside circle you see in the light blue is the buyer's journey, and you can see that the buyers enter that and they're going through a discovery, explore, buy, and engage and advocate. And in the inner circle where the gray starts is really a lead to revenue process, and I find this very interesting, and this is more company focused. Is your objective is to attract, capture, nurture, sell, deliver, and build advocacy for your product. So once you're building advocacy, you have an opportunity to either cross-sell or upsell your products and services. Now, probably the most important part between these two things, we're talking about processes. One you can control internally, in the outside circle you really can't control, but internally, the thing internally is personalize the multiple channel content delivery, and that's really what we're talking about. So the understanding of this really helps you deliver a relevant, personalized experience at every touch point with the goal, of marketing to an audience of one. So doing so will enhance customer loyalty. It'll help you drive increased revenues for your business. So finally, to kind of summarize everything that we've just gone through in a very short period, is really kind of wanted to go through a few key takeaways. And really, the first one is collect and consolidate data for a single point of view of the customer. And start simple and create your ideal customer profile. The next one is capitalize on real-time marketing. Get insights from industry leaders. Evaluate the participation rate in real time. And then map your customer journey. And the map should contain a series of interactions. So use the map to understand these interactions and look for the most common and predictable paths. Then become a trusted advisor. So give them business advice and factor in strategic points into your marketing conversation. And finally, really measure everything. So at this point, what I'd like to do is really thank, again, Lauren at HubSpot for today and turn the presentation over to her. So Lauren, thanks very much. Over to you.
Absolutely. Thanks so much, George. That was great. And just double checking here if everyone could see my screen. You got that?
Yes, Lauren, looks good.
You see my, great, okay. So thanks again, George, that was fantastic. And again, just to remind you guys, my name's Lauren. I work at HubSpot, and I do the lead nurturing for the direct North America region. And what I'm going to talk to you today is about how HubSpot tries to stay connected with our prospects through the buyer's journey through something called multi-channel nurturing. And I'll go through some high-level concepts and then move on to some best practices that you'll hopefully want to implement after we're done here today. So reiterating what George said, the buyer's journey, it's not a linear path anymore, but I think we often like to think that it is. So, in a perfect world, this is what it looks like, right? Someone comes to your site, they give their email address to subscribe to your blog. And then maybe a few days later, they become a lead by downloading an ebook that you're offering. And then maybe the week after that, they become a marketing qualified lead by asking for a free trial or maybe a demo of your product. And as the story goes, the sales rep connects with the lead, they get turned into an opportunity, and then in a fairy tale ending, they become the perfectly happy customer. Which sounds awesome, but unfortunately, that's not really how reality works. So sure, there are some people that, yeah, they might follow that perfect path to the customer, do that buyer's journey, but like George said, it's not linear, and it can't really be wrapped in a neat little bow. So really what's happening here is maybe someone, wishful thinking, someone calls your company and they become an opportunity right away. Or maybe someone becomes a lead without ever being a subscriber to your blog. So there's a bunch of different entry points in the way to the buyer's journey, and it's not linear. And as marketers, we often plan our strategy and our nurturing around the fairy tale version of the buyer's journey, and not really the one that exists in reality. So what can we do, given that this isn't just a perfect little journey? What can we do as marketers to stay connected in something that is so unpredictable? So traditionally, marketers, we've used marketing automation to do this. We've ushered prospects along the buyer's journey using marketing automation. You'll send a series of targeted emails to your prospects, maybe with some awesome content that you've created, and then moving on to your product and how it can help you, how it can help your prospect, etc. And it's all well and good. Marketing automation is great. Of course, you're not going to hear me say any different, but there's a problem with it. And you can't really use it as your sole channel to stay connected with your prospects anymore. It's just using this as your only channel is just not going to cut it. And here's why. This stat is from the recent B2B State of B2B Marketing Survey, and I'll just read it. 79% of marketers say their email open rates aren't even exceeding 20%. And whether the people receiving your email, whether they have filters or folders or whatever, they're getting more sophisticated, and they're just not reading and engaging with email like they used to. So fewer and fewer leads, the fewer of them are opening and converting on your email. So what can you do about it? So overall, you really want to think about, marketers need to really think beyond the inbox. And what that actually means is multi-channel nurturing, like we're going to be talking about. And when you start thinking about the inbox, you want to think about using multi-channel nurturing as a more holistic way with staying connected to your prospects throughout the buyer's journey. So I've realized I've jumped into this concept of multi-channel nurturing. So let me actually just define it for you guys so we're all on the same page. And second. So multi-channel nurturing, I'm just going to read it here, just so we're all clear. It's the act of communicating with your prospects through a series of targeted messages across multiple touch points, devices, and platforms. So again, this is staying connected in this holistic way. It actually really allows you to accommodate and execute your marketing for the reality version of the buyer's journey, and not the fairy tale one where someone becomes a visitor and they move beautifully all the way to a happy customer. Okay, so I've defined it for you. I've told you what multi-channel nurturing is. So let me give you some best practices, and you know, I hope that you found this useful for your own purposes. So these are the primary nurturing channels I'm going to go through, and these are really the ones we use at HubSpot. And I'm going to go through each one. So marketing automation, one-to-one social media interactions, paid retargeting, dynamic content on your website, and sales enablement. So I'm going to go through each of these and just give you some best practices on each one and how you can stay connected. So let's start marketing automation. So even though I just said that we need to think beyond the inbox, that doesn't mean we don't use marketing automation, right? It's still a very powerful tool, and it's very important to the channel to stay connected. But the trick is staying connected in a way that doesn't make your prospect hit the unsubscribe button. And you want to ensure, and you do this by ensuring that the content you're sending and at the frequency at which you're sending it is not only helpful and educational, but it's maximally relevant to your prospect's behavior and also the stage of their buyer's journey. So I guess, for example, you know, if someone downloads some templates on your website or maybe some type of top funnel ebook, you're not going to suddenly send them 3 emails in 1 week about a free trial for your product, or at least I hope you wouldn't. Because that's the kind of strategy that it's completely unaligned with that prospect's spot in the buyer's journey. And honestly, it really just ensures that your prospect stops taking their journey to your company altogether. So it's definitely important that you're using marketing automation in a way that's helpful and relevant to the prospect and their stage in the buyer's journey. So paid retargeting. We use it quite a bit here to bolster our inbound strategy, and paid retargeting is still somewhat of a new channel, I guess I would say, a relatively new channel in terms at least of B2B nurturing and B2B marketing. And for those of you that aren't familiar, retargeting is a form of advertising that allows you to follow people who have visited your site. So I'm sure many of you shop on Amazon. Amazon's actually a really good example of this. And say you visit Amazon and you're looking at a product, but you leave without buying, there's a pretty high chance that you're actually going to see an advertisement for that product either on another website you go to, maybe in a banner ad, or you might see it as a social media ad on any of your social networks like Twitter or Facebook. And why I'm bringing this up is that paid retargeting is actually a great way to stay connected if you do it right, because this is a great way to follow your prospect and keep yourself top of mind without being pushy. So instead of just sending bunches of emails, you're actually gently reminding your prospect about you and keeping yourself top of mind as they go about their day. And another thing that's so great about it is that since retargeting is usually done based on behavior of actions that pages have viewed on your website, for instance, you can actually align your retargeting message to your prospect stage in the buyer's journey. So for instance, if someone looks at a product page or 2 on your website, you can retarget them with an ad for the free trial or a demo of that product. So it's really just an excellent way to keep yourself top of mind. And one-to-one social media interactions. So social media is a great way to stay connected with your prospects no matter what. It's part of the inbound strategy. But what's great about it is that it really works at all stages in the buyer's journey. So wherever your prospects are on social media, I know for some of you maybe your audience is on LinkedIn. For others, maybe it's Twitter, Facebook, etc. But wherever they are, you want to make sure that you're monitoring social streams of people, dividing up your social streams by the buyer's journey and monitoring what they're saying on social media and really tracking mentions for your company or maybe keywords that might be relevant to your company. And when you're monitoring these people, give them attention. People love that on social media. That's what it's all about. Favorites, likes, responses, etc. You really want to make your prospects make them feel special. And another one I have here is VIP customers for competitive situations. So this is something that's done on a fairly small scale, but it's really powerful. So I'm sure many of you have seen tweets go out about, people asking, should I go with company A or B? Plenty of people will ask for that kind of advice on Twitter. And if you're in this situation and someone's trying to decide between you and a competitor and you see that on social, well, yeah, you could respond and say, come with us, but it doesn't hold as much weight, right? Because you're obviously biased. You want this person to come with you. So what you can actually do is you can actually leverage your happy customers here. And this is what we've done at HubSpot. Some people use like customer advocacy tools for this. Other people, it's just as simple as an email to a customer. But you can actually pull in some, I'm calling them VIP here, but they can be happy customers, whatever, and ask them to respond to these tweets. Ask them, maybe get something with them going where they do a couple tweets, respond to a couple tweets a month for you, as long as you're alerting them of what's happening. But it's so powerful, and say you're likely not going to run into the situation every day, that it doesn't get overbearing, but if it's a couple times a month or what have you, it's something that's actually really powerful to get your happy customers to vouch for you directly on social media and making that one-to-one connection. And then sales enablement. So it might sound funny, but you should actually consider your sales team another channel for the buyer's journey. So in the fairy tale version of the buyer's journey, the prospect connects with sales just at the right moment after you've nurtured them with this great content that you've created. But if people are actually, engaging a lot with you and they're taking high-value actions on your website, you don't necessarily need to go through a whole nurturing cycle to get them to talk to a sales rep. If someone's taking a high-value action, say, for us, it's like viewing the pricing page. It's probably similar for a lot of you on the webinar today. Or maybe viewing a product page. You can actually leverage internal sales notifications that will go directly to your sales reps with all the lead information and maybe even content that they can use to reach out. So if someone views the pricing page, I send an email to my sales rep saying, hey, so-and-so, this lead has viewed the pricing page X number of, maybe twice. You should reach out to them with this content. And it really helps them reach out, your sales reps reach out in a very helpful and really even lovable way. And internal notifications are awesome for your sales reps, but the trick here is really getting them involved at the right moment. So I don't know if any of you have really looked at a sales rep's inbox before, but it's often scary full. So bombarding them with notifications that are just too much and that maybe they don't think are helpful or relevant will cause them to actually tune out the notifications you've set up. And it could maybe lead to missing out on some good sales opportunities, which we don't ever want to happen. So before you actually implement this, I would really recommend, besides looking at, of course, first you'll look at your data and figure out, what pages, what the high value actions are on your website, but you also just want to get that qualitative data and actually sit down with your sales reps and ask them what they think is a high value action. When do they like to reach out to prospects? Do they think that the pricing page is the best, or maybe a demo, whatever. Just make sure you sit with your sales rep for some good sales and marketing alignment and talk about what they think are the best triggers for these types of notifications. And then dynamic content for your website. So for your website should really be ever-changing. It should be a dynamic experience for people when they come to visit your website, and the function should always be to move them down the funnel. So if I'm a blog subscriber, just a blog subscriber, and I visit the website, on your homepage, I probably shouldn't be seeing a call to action for a free trial. I'm not really there yet. Maybe I see a call to action for an ebook that's tangentially related to your product. You also want your website to act as a function, with the buyer's journey and as the visitor moves down the funnel. You can also use personalization. It's actually a great way to delight people. If you have all this information on people when they have when they fill out your forms, you can use, an example here on the left is you can use their name and their company and make sure your website changes and is maximally relevant to them. So I've talked about which channels to use for the buyer's journey. So now I'm going to touch on what content you should really be leveraging at each stage. So this is just a very basic, I mean, George went into this awesome detail about the buyer's journey. This is just a very high-level basic version that I whipped up here. And so as we all know, content is king. So leveraging the right content at the right moment makes all the difference in the world. So let's look at the different stages here and the types of content you should use. So when we're in the awareness stage, you really want to use prescriptive content. So how-to blog posts, templates, guides, ebooks, things that really will help somebody solve a problem right away or help them improve their skills to become better in their day-to-day job. And then when we move on to the consideration stage, we want to take a look more at a mixture of thought leadership content and some product content, things that are starting to be a little bit more related to your product, some case studies, maybe some product spec sheets. Webinars are also a great thing. You can also do, as George mentioned, third-party articles. Like this is a really good third-party articles that back up your claims. Those work really well in the consideration stage. And in the decision stage, you just have straight brand and product content. So you can even do blog posts here, like really high-level product-centric blog posts, maybe some slide shares about your product, high-level high-level case studies, free trials, and some demos, like anything that is going to really help them out at the decision stage. Okay, and I'm saying all this because, and why it's so important, is that leads nurtured with targeted content produce an increase in sales opportunities of more than 20%. That's huge, and it's so very important. And while we're talking about multi-channel nurturing, it's really not about blasting your message to everyone that will listen to you across all of the channels. It's really about hitting the right lead at the right time with the right content in the right place. And I always like to do a little, whenever I talk about nurturing, I do like to do a friendly little PSA. Is that the real magic to staying connected with your prospects is when you're adding value to them. If you're just spamming people with a bunch of free trial ads or demo ads, and maybe they've never really engaged that much, maybe they're just a blog subscriber, you're not adding any value to them. In fact, you're actually spamming them, you're annoying them, and some might even call it creepy. So I do want to briefly talk about measurement. So we all pretty much know like how we would measure each of these channels individually, but when you're talking about multi-channel nurturing, you really want to measure the impact all of the channels are having together and really kind of just assign the importance to each one. So I often use an attribution report. We use a lot of reports here at HubSpot, but attribution is fairly important. And it's used to understand the journey that people are taking from the first time they set foot on your website to the time they become a customer. And of course, this is not to be a product plug. This is a HubSpot screenshot, but you can totally do this in Google Analytics. You can do it in other products. This is just what I personally use. So this is an attribution report, and you can see that there are different channels. There are different channels below. I actually don't think these are all my channels, but that you can drill down into. And on the right, you have a score that you can assign the weight to each one. So the weight meaning you assign the weight as the most important channel, and the importance being the channel that leads to most customers closing. And really what this does, and not to get too into the nitty-gritty, is it helps you find out which channels, which of your channels are performing the best, which of your content is really delighting everybody, and which pages are being viewed before people actually becoming a customer. So you can really kind of put a laser focus in on the successes and the holes of your marketing efforts, and then you can really prioritize based on the data that you find from your attribution report. Again, you'll be able to understand which pages you should be promoting, maybe which should be optimized, maybe things that aren't working so well that you kind of need to cut out or maybe rethink. But this will really help you figure out, what you can do to move people through the journey more quickly. So I'm going to go into some do's and don'ts. So I'm going to dive back into the channels and then just give you some quick do's and don'ts on each one. So marketing automation / email. So keep it personal. Always focus on being helpful and educating your leads. Make sure your subject line is killer. Use some good personalization tokens in there if you have that ability. And test. So many times, I actually will talk to a lot of marketers, who, they meant to test, and yeah, they're going to get around to it. It's so important because you're testing your emails, because you're never going to figure out, if you're not testing, you're never going to figure out how you can improve. And on the don't side here, don't blast everyone with the same content. I actually read this statistic recently that 80% of email marketers actually send the same content to their entire database, disregarding lifecycle stage, persona, or actions taken on the website. So don't ever don't do that, because that will just get you an unsubscribe really quickly. Sometimes you can often, it happens that you can jump the gun on a sale. You don't really want to ask for a demo the second email or the first email that you've ever that you're first connecting with someone. And of course, on the other side, you don't want to neglect testing. Like I said, it's very, very important. And don't be boring. People are slogging through a lot of email these days. People don't really have a lot of time. If you're not grabbing somebody's attention, you are going to either be deleted or unsubscribed from. So paid retargeting. So you definitely, for those of you who are doing paid retargeting at the moment, you definitely want to always be testing your ad creative and keep rotating it out. Test the audiences that you're actually using, and segment as though you would segment your database for an email. You definitely want to be serving relevant ads. It's not an opportunity for you just to show one ad to everybody. And then also set a frequency cap. And for those of you that don't know what that is, a frequency cap is how often one person sees your ad. So whether you're using, Facebook advertising, Twitter advertising, or maybe Perfect Audience for display advertising, you have the ability to set a frequency cap or at least monitor it. 17 to 20 ad views per month is generally the sweet spot for frequency cap, but if you don't set one, you could easily have someone seeing an ad of yours about 10 times a day. They get very upset and they don't like you anymore. So make sure you're always setting a frequency cap. And don't, like I said before, don't spam your message. It's just like email. Paid retargeting is all about segmentation. And then neglect organic traffic. And really probably what I should have said here is not starting retargeting too early or jumping the gun on retargeting, because for retargeting to be very effective, you really need to have a good amount of traffic coming into your website. And if you're not having a good amount of traffic, retargeting isn't really going to work for you. So oftentimes people want to really jump into this really great retargeting strategy, and that's fine, but the problem is that if you don't have enough organic traffic to reach people across, across Facebook and Twitter and display advertising, is that it's not really going to be effective. So just focus on growing. What you can do in the meantime is focus really heavily on growing your organic traffic. Keep sharing on social. Keep creating awesome content that people love and that are going to share. And eventually, yeah, you'll definitely be able to be effective at retargeting. So once on social media, so definitely give your leads love. Favorites, likes, retweets, responses, everything. Be responsive when people ask you a question, or whether they're giving you feedback, negative or positive. Be responsive and kind. Always, you definitely want to be viewed as someone that's going to get back to someone right away. And be yourself. I'm assuming everyone in this webinar is a very fun person, and social media is an informal channel. So don't be afraid to be fun, maybe a little bit silly every now and then. And in terms of don't, definitely don't stalk people. I think that's pretty good advice. If you're, really just favoriting and liking everything just a few people are saying, that can get a little weird. So just, keep it in moderation. And then don't wear out your welcome with your customer advocates. So as I brought up that VIP customer program earlier, make sure that when you're actually bringing customers into these situations, set some expectations. Say if you start doing this and you send an email anytime you see a competitive tweet and you want to bring a customer in. Before you do that, make sure you actually set expectations with those customers and say, hey, like how many tweets or how many would you be willing to respond to like per month or per week, whatever your situation is. But make sure you just set clear expectations beforehand because you don't want, you don't want a happy customer to feel, burdened by this. So definitely make sure to set expectations there. So this actually should have been on the other side, and I apologize for that, George and Robin. This is tough to scale. This should be on the do side. But if this can be tough to scale if we're talking about one-to-one social media interaction. So if you're feeling a little overwhelmed by it, you kind of feel like you don't really know where to start, just stick to small streams, like any opportunities that you might have, sales opportunities, or just smaller groups of people that you feel are really highly qualified. That's totally okay to do. It's on a smaller scale, but it's very, very effective. And dynamic content, just a simple slide here for your website is to make sure you're testing those calls to action on your website and make sure you're rotating them out and figuring out what works and what's not working. Always be testing your copy and messaging. This goes for your website all of the time. Your website is a living, breathing thing. And don't go overboard on the personalization. This can be a little much if you have a lot of data on your leads and you have the ability to personalize your web pages. You definitely don't want to say, hello, George, every time he comes to the website who works at Matrix Marketing. That's a little much. So just use that in moderation. And then sales enablement. I really like this slide because it's very simple, and I think it gets to the point is that you want to involve your sales team at the right moment, but do not involve them at every moment. And I'll reiterate what I had said before about internal notifications. Too many of those could mean that your reps are just starting to tune you out. They feel like maybe they're not useful, they're getting too many, and they're just kind of tuning you out now. And not only would they might lose out on some good opportunities, if you're actually sending out notifications that aren't exactly I guess, appropriate to the stage of the buyer's journey, a sales rep might reach out too early. They might reach out to someone that in a way that's not really aligned with where that prospect is in the buyer's journey. And that is it for me. I definitely get in contact with me or find me on Twitter. I love talking about marketing and lead nurturing. So yeah, Robin, I think that's it for me.
Thank you, Lauren, very much. Great job. At this point, we're going to go ahead and open the floor to questions. It looks like we've got a couple questions that have come in, and I think a couple of these are specific to you, Lauren, so I'll just go ahead and read these to you.
Okay.
So someone in the audience has asked, what has been your most successful channel for multi-channel nurturing?
I wouldn't say there's really one. It's really the way that they're most, we've always started out with email. I would say that. So I guess that's our biggest, quote unquote, I would say, the one that has failed the most. But in terms of most success, there's really not one that is better than the other. It's really all about holistically staying in touch through the buyer's journey. So all of them together is really what makes the success of the marketing machine, I would say. Okay, good. And then this is a great question. How much traffic should I have to start doing retargeting? Yeah, that's one that you're going to find a lot of numbers out there. If anyone's on AdWords currently and you try to do remarketing through there, they'll say, okay, you'll need to have at least 1,000 people cookied. That is definitely not enough. I would say like 50,000, and I know that's a lot, 50,000 people being cookied. And it's because when you're retargeting, you're trying to reach so many people. You're trying to reach a lot of people across different platforms, whether it's display or social media, Twitter or Facebook advertising. Sorry, that's what I meant to say. So when you have a smaller audience, you're actually paying a lot more because you're paying a lot more to actually reach out just to a select group of people. So Yeah, retargeting, honestly, it's not for everybody. It's definitely a numbers game. You want to get your volume up, and you can do it. I mean, if you're not there yet, like I said, focus on growing that organic traffic, and so you can actually have an effective retargeting strategy. If you feel like you may be hovering in like the 30 to 40,000 for your website traffic, then give it a go. It doesn't hurt to try, but you'll probably save yourself a lot of heartache if you really wait till you have enough volume.
Okay, great. And then last question here, one of the members of the audience is asking, is retargeting just for B2C or is it for B2B only?
It's for everybody. And so normally B2B actually, retargeting was generally made for B2C, to be honest. That's where it works the best. So when you see places like Amazon and Zappos, I mean, they're just masters of retargeting because they get so much traffic. And they absolutely can do that. But it's for both. It's relatively, B2C has been doing retargeting longer, I would say, than B2B has. It's a little bit tougher in B2B. You sometimes don't really get the traffic that these B2C sites will be seeing, which is natural. But it's definitely for both. And I highly recommend that, if you feel like you have the traffic and you have the budget and you're in a place to do so, try it. But absolutely, it's for B2C and B2B for sure.
Okay, great. Well, that wraps up our questions. I'm going to move down to this contact screen. So if you guys want to reach out to George or to Lauren directly, or if you'd like to follow them on Twitter, I highly encourage you to do that. So, and then this concludes our presentation for today. And again, I will send out a link via email so that you guys can access the replay and listen to it at your convenience. And then also if you want to share it with some of your colleagues. So thanks everyone for your attention today, and special thanks to George and to Lauren for your great presentation today. And I wish everyone a great day.
Thanks everyone.
Thanks everyone. Thanks everyone.
Thanks.